T.I.'s son, King Harris, has been arrested after not appearing in court and some other things connected.
Trying to coddle him for. Let the man walk off, have some time to himself, sit down, soak it up, and come up with what he need to do.
So him being arrested isn't really like the shocker. It's him coming out and his, I guess, reaction to it, right? Because everybody's saying, King, you grew up privileged, bro. Why are you going down this path? Now he's talking about F the police, F12. So, you know, it just,
The current conversation on the streets is dominated by the harrowing ordeal of the Harris family. This time, the focus is not on trivial matters like extravagant jewelry or fleeting viral moments on Instagram. Instead, it is a grim tale of survival within an unimaginably harsh environment. King Harris, the son of the renowned rap artists T.I. and Tiny, is reportedly in intensive care following a brutal prison attack that has captured the world's attention. The emerging reports read less like a standard prison narrative and more like a high-stakes crime thriller. According to confidential sources, King was ambushed in his cell block in such a violent manner that guards had to intervene and forcibly remove him from the scene as the area descended into chaos.
Steve Sadar reached out to me looking to make a deal on behalf of T.I. and Tiny. And I told Steve Sadar that my clients want justice. So if the deal involves Tiny and T.I. turning themselves in and admitting to the crime that they've committed, then fine, we got a deal. But if it does not, then I would prefer to have the investigators do their work and to bring criminal charges against Tiny and T.I.
His face was swollen, and his body was barely moving as the entire prison erupted in a chaotic melee, leaving multiple inmates bruised and battered. This was not a random fight. Whispers suggest that it was a calculated attack, and the motives behind it may be more sinister than anyone initially believed. The discussion within the walls of that Georgia prison is chilling. This was not a result of a minor conflict or a routine display of aggression. It was a planned ambush intended to break him down. Some inmates reportedly orchestrated the setup weeks in advance, aiming to humiliate him for what they perceived as his continuous display of wealth and privilege. Others claim it was a brutal lesson that, behind bars, his last name and Instagram followers mean nothing. The only things that ensure survival are loyalty and toughness. As one former inmate explained, weakness makes you a target, and right now, King is learning that lesson in the most difficult way imaginable. As soon as the news became public, the internet was ablaze with reactions. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, every platform was flooded with comments. Some people expressed genuine shock and offered prayers for the young man, while others mocked him, making comments such as, "King finally met the real world and couldn't handle it."
So the dynamics here are interesting, but I can't judge how the parenting has gone, because everything that we've seen has been stuff that many of us would have said or similar if we saw our children do this. But I will say this, a lot of what's happening is because it's in the public. Like most children don't have to do this in the public.
The division among people online has only intensified the pressure on the Harris family, who, according to insiders, are in a state of complete panic. T.I. has reportedly not slept since the attack, making continuous calls to lawyers, politicians, and anyone with the slightest influence within the Georgia Department of Corrections. An Atlanta source even claimed that T.I. is prepared to sign non-disclosure agreements, write checks, or make promises to ensure King's safe release before he is targeted again. Simultaneously, Tiny is said to be operating from her own command center, coordinating with publicists, media contacts, and legal representatives. However, their famously strong bond is reportedly showing signs of strain under the weight of this crisis. Insiders whisper of explosive arguments behind closed doors, with each parent blaming the other for their son's involvement in this nightmare.
I wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for Family Hustle. Right. That does come with some, it's some adversity. It's some adversity to come with that. People get in your bed.
Yeah. Friends close to the family are unsure whether the couple is fighting for King's survival or simply fighting with each other. Regardless, their son's life is at risk while their marriage's foundation begins to crumble. The once unshakable Harris dynasty appears to be falling apart under the pressure of this crisis. This time, the stakes are not about television ratings or family pride. They are about life and death. death. The situation is further complicated by a proliferation of circulating rumors. Some suggest that King was caught in a botched contraband deal, either refusing to cooperate or attempting to deceive the wrong group. Inside prison, loyalty is of the utmost importance, and a broken promise can quickly get you targeted. Insiders linked to the investigation even claim that King was lured to a specific area of the prison where 3 men attacked him while, mysteriously, the surveillance cameras were not working. Although the Department of Corrections insists there was no technical issue, no one is accepting that explanation. As one of T.I.'s former road managers bluntly stated, "It's Georgia. Cameras break when they need to break." Now, as King's condition remains unstable, the family's tensions are at an all-time high. Fans have not forgotten how dire things appeared just months ago, referencing the infamous Falcons game incident in which T.I. placed King in a headlock live on Instagram after another heated argument about his upbringing.
I graduated. That's the only good thing they posted of me going viral. I'm not on the media's good side. I don't know why, but it ain't.
The world once saw T.I. shouting, "You are embarrassing yourself and your family," as security rushed in and Tiny attempted to de-escalate the situation. At the time, many believed that moment was King's lowest point. However, this recent ambush inside prison demonstrates that circumstances can deteriorate even further. Now, with King fighting for his life in a hospital bed and the Harris family's private turmoil becoming public across the internet, it's clear that the incident at the Falcons game was merely a prelude to a far more disturbing chapter. To compound the gravity of the situation, prison insiders claim that King was not only targeted for his identity, but was also relentlessly taunted about his parents' notorious scandals, particularly the persistent trafficking allegations linked to T.I. and Tiny. Although the family has consistently denied these accusations, the rumors have never completely subsided, and within a prison environment, such gossip can easily be weaponized. Reportedly, King contributed to the escalating tension by flaunting his status for social media, even from behind bars, attempting to challenge rivals and promote himself as the next prominent figure in Atlanta.
And you can, you know what I'm saying, kind of woo-saw yourself outside of the public opinion.
However, older inmates were not impressed. One former inmate stated directly, "We don't care who your daddy is. If you don't pay what you owe or you run your mouth, you get handled. That's the rule inside." Consequently, King is now paying the price in blood. Meanwhile, T.I. is reportedly using every bit of influence he has left. Sources claim he has even threatened to publicly expose the prison's inhumane conditions, while quietly providing stories to friendly media outlets to shift the blame away from King and onto a supposedly corrupt system. It is a classic celebrity crisis management strategy. Yet with time running out and threats still looming, a haunting question remains: is it too late to save him? Beyond that, people are also questioning if this is the inevitable outcome of raising someone to believe they are untouchable, only to have reality strike back harder than anyone could have anticipated. As whispers continue to spread, the details surrounding King Harris's ambush are getting darker by the hour. This was reportedly more than just a simple beating. The consensus in the prison corridors is that King may have crossed the wrong people in a way from which there is no return. Multiple insiders have hinted that a contraband deal was involved, and King either attempted to withdraw from it or made a cunning move that deeply offended key figures within those walls. In a place where every decision is a matter of survival, that kind of betrayal is akin to signing your own death warrant.
I really admire his dedication and commitment to the craft, because, you know, I kind of told him, you know, what was wrong about it. Making mistakes. I ain't had no daddy who would pull up and get on my ass anytime. Things I did, you can't get away with.
I know that.
Man, damn. Yeah, that's I ain't see that one coming. You know
Really?
what I mean? Nah, I didn't.
There are whispers that his name appeared in a contraband ledger tied to a broken promise, and in a prison environment, such a breach is often repaid in blood. The situation, however, is much more complex than a simple contraband dispute. People are not just discussing a broken deal. They are saying that King's last name is a curse within that system. The Harris family has always attracted attention, but this time, it appears to be toxic. The old trafficking allegations surrounding T.I. and Tiny never truly vanished, and King reportedly could not escape their shadow. Other inmates allegedly mocked him, calling him soft, and asserting that the same scandals that haunted his parents had now painted a target on him. This, combined with his reputation for being loud, flashy, and acting as though he were the star of the yard, caused resentment to build like dynamite, just waiting for a spark. For some of the older prisoners, the act was not even personal, it was symbolic. One correctional officer, speaking off the record, admitted that high-profile inmates like King become pawns in someone else's power struggle. When a celebrity is incarcerated, he is not just another inmate. He is a bargaining chip, a statement, and a way for gangs to demonstrate their dominance. According to a former Georgia inmate, you take down the famous one, you send a message to everybody else. This is precisely what may have transpired in this case. Meanwhile, T.I. and Tiny's relationship is reportedly buckling under the weight of this crisis. Behind closed doors, sources say their arguments are volatile, with Tiny blaming the system and outside influences, while T.I. insists that discipline and powerful connections are the only way out. Tiny is said to favor a softer approach, portraying their son as a victim of a broken justice system, but T.I. is reportedly doubling down on using force, politi, Cal influence, and high-powered phone calls. This division is not only straining their marriage, but is also placing the entire Harris brand under intense scrutiny. An insider close to the couple stated, "This is worse than the lawsuits, worse than the reality TV fallout, worse than anything they've ever faced, and the more they scramble, the messier it gets." Family friends are torn on whether going public helps or hurts the situation. Some have warned that publicly disparaging the prison system will only make King a larger target, while others argue that silence is a form of surrender, and the Harris name cannot afford to appear weak. Every leaked detail, anonymous tip, and whisper from a prison guard adds fuel to a fire that is already blazing across social media. Fans are now connecting the dots between old scandals, resurfaced lawsuits, and this latest ambush, creating a narrative that may be even uglier than the family ever imagined. This is not King's first brush with controversy. People still recall his social media antics, such as publicly challenging rivals and the time he was arrested, flexing with stacks of cash and portraying himself as Atlanta's next wild card. Outside of prison, this was seen as mere entertainment. However, inside, that same energy made him an instant target. Other inmates reportedly laughed at him behind his back, remarking that he was acting like a gangster when everyone knew he had grown up in a life of luxury, surrounded by cameras and security. To them, he was not a threat. He was a spectacle, and eventually, a liability. Psychological warfare within a prison is just as lethal as physical violence. Every rumor, every stare, and every whispered warning becomes the first step toward another ambush. Given that King's privileged upbringing was common knowledge, he became the perfect punching bag for resentment. Private schools, reality television shows, bodyguards, and access to lawyers that most inmates can only dream of are details that make him stand out like a neon target. Some inmates hated him for his background, others felt insulted by his attempts to appear tough, and a few simply saw him as a pawn in their own chess game. Regardless of the motive, King's celebrity status was turned against him. His fame became both his weapon and his downfall. Outside of the prison walls, the Harris family's empire is beginning to crumble under the weight of this chaos. The other children are being dragged into the public speculation, forced to navigate a minefield of messy paternity rumors and old disputes that were meant to be buried years ago. The clear distinction between private heartbreak and public scandal has disappeared. Everything is now spilling into the open, and the family can no longer control the narrative. The very spotlight that once built their brand is now tearing it apart. The emotional toll of this situation is immense. This is no longer about a show cancellation, an embarrassing viral clip, or even legal dispute. This is about their son's life and the family's legacy. Every headline makes things worse. Every whisper of betrayal adds a new layer of danger, and every public statement feels like a high-stakes gamble that could easily backfire. The Harris family has always thrived on attention, but now that attention feels like poison dripping on an open wound. The cold truth is that the justice system does not bend for celebrity. It does not care how many records a person's father sold or how many seasons their family starred in on television. Behind bars, fame does not make a person untouchable. It makes them more exposed. It turns them into a bargaining chip, a spectacle, a headline waiting to happen. For King Harris, his last name has become a liability that is now threatening his very survival. The prison ambush was not just a single attack. It may be the opening chapter of a saga that is much darker than anyone realizes, because people are now questioning whether King Harris is simply paying the price of arrogance, or if his ambush is a direct consequence of his family's controversial past. Whether this is a deeper conspiracy at play, a deal gone wrong, enemies plotting in the shadows, and a system that has already failed him before he had a chance to grow up. As the Harris family scrambles to pull strings and save their legacy, the question haunting everyone is simple yet deadly. Is King just another casualty of fame colliding with reality? Or is he the first domino in a chain reaction that could expose secrets the family has been trying to bury for years? From the moment King Harris stepped behind those concrete walls, the countdown began. It feels as if every move since has been building to this brutal climax. What is clear is that he was not just attacked for being himself. He was attacked for everything he represents. The Harris name, the scandals, the flashy lifestyle, and the reality television baggage all painted him as a lightning rod for jealousy and resentment. Correctional officers have admitted off the record that inmates like King do not simply walk into prison. They walk into a storm. The second he entered that yard, he became a pawn in battles that had nothing to do with him personally, but everything to do with power, pride, and reputation. When rivals wanted to send a message to him, to the other inmates, and to the watching world, King was the perfect target. Insiders point to how quickly this situation spiraled out of control. One source who had served time in Georgia's system explained it best. When someone with headlines comes in, the sharks start circling. They want to break him, test him, or use him to score points. This is exactly what King faced. Whispers of a contraband deal gone wrong, mockery over his privileged upbringing, and taunts tied to his parents' legal troubles meant he was swimming with sharks from day one. When the cameras mysteriously went dark during his ambush, it felt less like a random fight and more like a calculated setup. A trap sprung at the perfect moment, leaving him bloodied, unconscious, and in need of medical rescue. However, the psychological blows might be even more lethal than the physical ones. Prison insiders say King was constantly warned to tone it down, to stop showing off, and to cease playing the role of a celebrity gangster, but he did not listen. His attempts to stand on business only made him appear softer to men who had spent years mastering the code of survival. Respect isn't bought, it's earned, one ex-inmate said. This rule has always been written in blood inside those walls, and by not playing by these rules, King was always destined to be handled, and handled hard. On the outside, the fallout is shaking the Harris empire like never before. Lawyers are working overtime, trying to manage the narrative, pushing sympathetic stories, and feeding friendly media outlets with various excuses. Some insiders claim T.I. is preparing to drop bombshells about prison corruption, threatening to expose the system if his son isn't given protection. Others say Tiny is quietly begging allies to frame King as the victim of a cruel machine, not a reckless kid who played too tough. However, no matter which strategy they choose, the family cannot escape one reality. The world is watching, and every headline makes them look weaker. Even worse, the rest of the Harris children are being dragged into the storm. Old rumors about family feuds, messy paternity questions, and past scandals are all resurfacing. Social media feeds are filled with speculation, connecting the dots between everything the family has been through and this latest crisis. What should have been a private nightmare has now become a public circus, and it is tearing them apart piece by piece. Friends close to the family say the emotional toll is worse than anything they have ever endured, worse than lawsuits, worse than television show cancellations, and even worse than that viral Falcons game incident. This is no longer about entertainment. It is about legacy, survival, and the family name itself. Zooming out, King's situation is exposing the cold truth that celebrity privilege holds no weight behind bars. Fame does not shield you, it spotlights you. Money cannot always protect you, sometimes it paints you as prey. And family connections do not bend a justice system built on ruthless codes and silent rules. King Harris's high-profile status was not a shield, it was the very weapon used against him. He became the prize, the pawn, the bargaining chip, and his blood on the prison floor became the message rivals wanted the world to see. This is what makes this story so much bigger than one attack. It is not just about King fighting for his life in a hospital bed. It is about what comes next. Every insider says this ambush feels like just the beginning. If King lives, will he be able to survive the next setup waiting in the shadows? Will T.I.'s high-powered connections buy him a lifeline, or just spark more enemies who see him as protected and privileged? Will Tiny's softer, protective strategy work, or will it only make King look weaker in the eyes of men who play by a code of power and dominance? These questions hang over the Harris family like storm clouds, ready to burst. Some people call this karma, others a conspiracy, and a few even whisper that it's destiny, the unmasking of a family that built itself on drama, wealth, and reputation. Whatever the truth, one fact is impossible to ignore. King Harris is now the face of a brutal reality check, a stark reminder that in prison, there are no TV edits, no Instagram filters, and no security teams ready to save you. It is survival of the fittest, where every wrong move comes with a price. So here we are, watching almost in slow motion as the Harris dynasty faces its hardest test yet. The attack on King is not just shaking their family, it is shaking the entire culture, forcing fans, critics, and insiders to ask, is this the downfall of a legacy or the start of a redemption arc no one saw coming? Let us know what you think in the comments. Is King a victim of his circumstances, or did his own choices make him a target? Could this ambush be the opening act of something even darker, secrets waiting to spill that could shatter the Harris empire for good? Drop your thoughts below, and do not forget to subscribe, share, like, and comment so you never miss the next chapter in this wild saga.